is a Capers Reamortization Bill 21 RS 0414.
Thank you. We have a motion by Senator Hawk, a second by Senator Petty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. They're accepted. Okay, first item we have on the agenda is subcommittee reports. We have the Federal and State Affairs Chairman, Senator Alley, to report back on Kansas Lottery, Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we appreciate the opportunity to report on these two agencies. I will say that the process went smooth in committee, a lot different than what I had anticipated, but it went well, and we do appreciate that. So the first item we'll take will be the Kansas Lottery for 2021. The agency requested a revised estimate of $340.6 million, all from special revenue funds in 2021. And this is a decrease of about $44 million, or 11% below the fiscal year 2021 approved budget. Decrease was primarily attributed to the decrease in contractual services expenditures by $41 million, or 12%. And the revised estimate for 95 FTE positions is unchanged from 2021 approved budget. The governor recommends expenditures of $344.2 million, all from special revenue in 2021, and it's a decrease of $371,210,000, or 0.1% below the agency's estimate. This is due to the governor's recommendation to implement a 5% shrinkage rate, which would reduce the budget by $371,210, all from special revenue funds. Additionally, the governor recommended 90 positions, FTE, which is a decrease of 5 FTE positions below the 2021 estimate. And this decrease is due to the elimination of vacant positions. And the committee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 20 and 21. If we move to the Kansas Lottery for 22, the agency requests $375.7 million, all from special revenue funds for 2022. This request is an increase of $31 million, or 9% above the 21 estimate. The majority of the increase is attributable to the increase in the gaming facility management fee, which is $29.3 million. Salaries and wages expenditures increases for the merit-based pay adjustments, and that makes up the major increase. The request for 95 FTE is unchanged from the number from 21. The governor recommends expenditures of $375.3, all from special revenue for 2022. This is a decrease of $390,510 below the agency's request, and it's basically due to implementation of the 5% shrinkage rate. Additionally, the governor recommends 90 positions FTE, which is a decrease of 5 FTE from the agency's request, and this is due to the elimination of vacant positions. Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 2022, and I do want to recognize our analyst, Gabriel Hall. She did a great job, and we appreciate the work that she did with that. Are there any questions for the lottery for 21-22?
Yes, Senator McGinn.
I just have a question. It doesn't appear that they were really hit by the virus. I mean, because everybody has to go to the Quick Trip, I guess, right? I mean, it's not like what we're probably going to hear on the gaming facility.
They did reduce some funds. If you've seen in the first one, they reduced $41.3 million. This is due to the decrease in the gaming facility management fee. But then in 22, they estimate that to come back. So basically, they didn't have a lot of change in their revenue.
And why do they have to have 90 FTEs?
Well, that's a reduction from the 95 they requested. That's 90 that basically they have, and they had about, I think they have a little bit more, like 88 or something, total FTEs.
Yeah, but what did they do?
Why, I do not have an answer for you on that. We can probably,
I
we
could
can
ask
probably get that answer.
Gabrielle, maybe. Gabrielle, do you?
Are they all over the state, or are they working out of an office somewhere?
Let's ask Gabrielle.
Sure. So were you asking for what the 5 FTE reduction, what they were in, or kind of an overlook?
No, I was asking what the 90 people do.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you have the budget analysis in front of you, but in each of the programs in the budget analysis, starting on page 1349, it shows how many FTE positions are in each program. So they do have some administrative folks that would do some of that human resource work, policy information. They also have an IT department that has about 5.7 FTE. Within the sales department, they have 28 FTEs. And then they have security FTEs that are responsible for personnel and property and investigating criminal violations. And they do not have any FTEs in their cost of sales. Those are FTEs shared in other departments. And expanded lottery also has a portion at 17 and 7 FTE in marketing. And to answer your other question, they have their offices here in Topeka. They aren't in a state capitol building, but it is just over on 129, just in a typical office building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions, Senator Hawk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we still transferring approximately $50 million from lottery into state general fund?
I will going to have to refer to Gabrielle on that one also. Gabrielle?
And I assume that's staying the same for Gabriel.
Are you talking about the amount that we get back from the lottery? And
Yes.
Yes, which is our 22% of revenue. Gabrielle, do you have that information?
So yes, there's an expanded gaming revenue section and then traditional lottery. The SGF transfer is after the $50 million that's set aside for things like EDIF, corrections, juvenile justice, and problem gambling. What's left after that $50 million, a little bit comes out for mental health programs and for veteran benefits programs, and then that last piece gets transferred to SGF. So in fiscal year 2020, that was a little over $16 million.
And do we know what's anticipated in 21 and 22? Is that?
We do. In the
Assumed
budget
to be
analysis too, there is a explanation on page 1341 and page 1343 onto page 1344. In fiscal year 2021, they expect a $23.4 million transfer to SGF, and in fiscal year 2022, $25.6 million.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick.
Senator McGinn?
So that transfer, that's part of that mental health or that lottery machine or whatever that thing is that took us 3 years to get in place, the money for clubhouse and mental health. That it's my understanding that that is finally starting to build and is getting to the level of transfer they were hoping for.
So in fiscal year 2020, that amount ended up being 1.26 million. It is all the revenue from the lottery vending machines, and most of those initial 272 machines have been installed. They estimate about 200 are currently installed, and they're working on the remaining machines that go in those social settings like bars and restaurants. It's estimated to be $4 million in fiscal year 2021, and then up to $6 million in 22. And statutorily, it's up to $8 million.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Senator Petty?
So if I'm tracking this, is this from the lottery vending machines, that fund that you just spoke to that's gearing up to be around $6 million in 2022, is that is that over and above the 15 million that you spoke to earlier that goes into programs like EDIF, corrections, and juvenile justice?
So they are basically separate buckets of money. The way state giving, excuse me, state gaming revenues are distributed, that mental health program piece is the revenue from lottery vending machines. So that is treated separate from that $50 million that's transferred to those programs that you spoke about.
Okay, I guess so that was 50 million, not 15 million. Okay, thank you. I said the wrong number. Is that
So
right?
the first 50 goes to EDIF, correctional
Okay.
institutions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, should we go ahead and do a motion, Senator Clays?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that the committee accept the governor's recommendation for the the Kansas Lottery for FY 21 and 22 as presented.
Second by Senator Hawk. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Please proceed, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move on to the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission. And the agency requested a revised estimate of $9.1 million, all from special revenue funds for 2021. This is a decrease of $311,276 below the 21 approved amount. Decrease is primarily attributed to a decrease in expenditure to salaries and wages and employee contributions to the Employees Fringe Benefits Fund. And it also due to vacant positions within the expanded gaming regulation program. The agency requested 99.5 FTE positions, which is a decrease of 2.5 below the 21 approved budget. Decrease is primarily attributed to the elimination of the vacant programs. The governor recommended 8.7 million, all from special revenue for 2021. This is a decrease of 344,512, or 3.7% below the agency's revised estimate. Decrease is primarily attributed to the governor's recommendation to increase the agency's, current 5% shrinkage to 10% shrinkage, which decreases expenditures for salaries and wages by $338,793 for 2021, which is a decrease partially offset by increases in contractual services and commodities. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate of 99.5 positions in 2021. The committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 2021. If we move on to 2022, the agency requested 9.1, all from special revenue funds for 2022. This is an increase of $74,302 above 21 estimates. This increase is primarily attributed to expected increases in employee contributions to salaries and wages and fringe benefits, including group health insurance. Additionally, the agency anticipates increased expenditures for computers and professional equipment. The agency requests 99.5 FTE, which is unchanged from 21 revised estimate. The governor recommends $9 million, all from special revenue funds. This is a decrease of $171,084 below the agency request. The decrease is due to the governor's recommendation to include a shrinkage rate, include a shrinkage rate from 5%, include a shrinkage rate of 5% salaries and wages from 2022. Governor concurs with the 99.5 FTE positions for 2022, and the committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 2022. I'll stand for questions.
Questions on 2022? Seeing none, I think we'll go ahead and recognize Senator Clays.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee accept the governor's recommendation for the Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission FY 21 and 22 budgets as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Senator Hawk seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Senator Alley, thank you, and be sure and thank the Fed and State Affairs Committee. We appreciate all your work.
We'll do that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, next we have the Transportation Committee report, and we'll have Senator Clays on the Kansas Department of Transportation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's go ahead and start out with FY 2021. There on your packet, you'll see that the agency requested a revised estimate for 21 of 1.9 billion. That's all from the State Highway Fund, special revenue funds. It's an increase of about 268.9 million, which is 17% above the FY 2021. I'm just going to go over a couple of these, peel back the onion on what those items are that were driving that increase of 268.9 million. First off, I'll start kind of out of order on those because it explains some of the following. So capital improvements are going to be the letting of those T-Works projects that were delayed and some of the new Ike modernization and expansion projects. So when you see capital improvements of 222.4 million in there, that's what that is. Then you're seeing a capital or a contractual services increase. When you see the contractual services increase of 15.3 million, which is 10% above the FY 2021, that's the architects and engineers cost for the design of those projects so that they could be let and started. So those kind of combine together to form that one. You're also seeing an other assistance of 54.2 million in the narrative. When you go to other assistance, that's explaining some of the Rural Transit CARES Act funds, some increases from some rail projects that include federal funding, and the $5 million short line rail improvement fund that's part of our Ike program. Those items are your main cost drivers inside that request. If you want explainers on any others, I think aid to local units of government kind of explains itself, but if there are any others during questioning, feel free to peel those out. Down at the bottom of the narrative on the agency, you'll notice that there's a decrease of 100.7 FTEs. Those are vacant and unfunded positions, so that's more of some clerical cleanup really than anything else, bringing their FTEs into alignment with what they actually have as far as FTEs that are funded positions. And that is at 2,250.3. Previously, it was 2,351. We'll go on then to the 2021 adjustments by the governor. She added $100,000 from the Driver Education Scholarship Grant Fund. She added 17.9 million from the Special City and County Highway Fund. Those just reflect the estimated revenues and expenditures during the estimating group. Added $10,000 for the County Equalization Adjustment Fund and added $500,000 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to reflect that third round of funding. So no major changes there that weren't anticipated through revenue and expenditure adjustments. If you take a look at the Senate Transportation Committee recommendation, we can probably skip over the discussion about the State Highway Fund in relation to the Kansas Highway Patrol. Having that fund in front of us, there was some discussion over aircraft that also took place in its appropriate budget in the Kansas Highway Patrol, and it looks like we basically did most of what was discussed there. There was also some discussion about setting up a fund to anticipate further need for aircraft replacement and operations in the future, so we could discuss some of that here in this committee or at Omnibus. And then also, if you go down to the part that discusses CARES Act funding, there's some notations about some of the pass-through funding that occurred in addition to the PPE type funding that you saw throughout these agencies. The CARES Act funding is more flow-through, so you can see that some of it went to rural transit providers, urban transit providers, and Kansas airports. That's not really something that KDOT has as part of their budget, but it is a pass-through. But if you do look down to the HR 133 federal COVID relief bill, I did want to make note of this and ask that the committee put this in here just for our information as we go into debating the overall budget. There is an increase in preservation work of about $15 million that is due to federal funds that are coming in through HR 133. There is an increase of about $5 million in local partnership projects. And then where you see this keeping state and local budgets whole, actually only 12.5 million of that is keeping state and local budgets whole. 25 million of that is for additional expansion and modernization projects. So I thought it would be important for the committee to know that if there is a need to back out any funding, that those items do exist where federal funds are being used inside that budget to increase it substantially. And then, of course, we also have the Senate committee recommendation that deals with the 2.5% increase in salaries and wages that we are setting off to omnibus. So I will stand for questions on 21. If anyone has any questions on anything that I didn't cover there or wants more explanation, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions on 21? Senator Petty?
So thanks for that information, but as I'm looking at the recommendations, are you saying that we should, and I didn't serve on the subcommittee, but now number 1, 2, and 3 no longer need to be listed?
It's really not the purview of the Transportation Budget Committee to affect the Kansas Highway Patrol's budget. So the fact that they had the state highway fund in front of them, it elicited some response on that. I think that those funds being used was causing some consternation. So the good senator from Leavenworth had some commentary he wanted included, and everyone concurred.
Okay, so, because I was going to say, I sat on the Highway Patrol Committee, and
Right.
So again, so are we removing then this one?
I will make a motion to remove those because they aren't really relevant to this budget. They're only relevant in the sense that the state highway fund funds the entire, or largely the entirety of the budget for the Kansas Highway Patrol. And since the state highway fund is affected by this budget, they chose to discuss it.
Gotcha. And then how about the CARES Act? I mean, the CARES Act funds are specific to these issues. We would be reviewing them again, even at, is this to review at omnibus, even though they are specific to those rural transit providers and urban transit providers and airports? We're going to review it?
No. So you'll notice
Just
up.
HB 133, is that the one?
So when I make the motion, I will make the motion just to include the HB 133 notation in the budget so that that notation follows this all the way through the process. But yeah, you'll notice at the top it says recommendations and notation. So the CARES Act funding was just a notation so that when I present the budget, I can talk about those things and not have to go dig through paperwork. So okay. I asked that that be included there for a notation. And then also the issue with HR 133, that's also just a notation, but I'll ask that that notation be sustained through the budget process.
I think some of the presentations should be different than others, so yeah, that's great.
Senator Hawk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the Senate committee recommendation on the salary, do we need to be specific that we're going to review that at omnibus? It basically says we're deleting it, and that is true for the time being, but we're going to review all those salary things, or is that just implied in the way we work?
My motion, back when I made the motion, was to review it at omnibus, so that's the...
Do we need to add that statement?
We'd have to add it to all of them. I think the purpose of the motion was so that we wouldn't have to deal with this in every budget.
No, I agree. I just wanted to make sure that we were of like mind that we're going to review that at omnibus.
I think we'll skip it.
I think we are. It just doesn't say that, so thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, move on to 22, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to 2022. There's a pretty substantial increase here, and I'll go over some of the other numbers too, just for your information that aren't really listed here. But There's a reported budget of 2.2 billion. It's all from special revenue funds, again, the State Highway Fund. It's an increase of about 363.9 million. That's 19% above the 2021 revised. Some of these cost drivers, again, 12 million for the contractual services, which, as I mentioned, is the architect and engineering fees. The capital improvements is 392.9 million. Those are the Ike projects and the continued T-Works lettings, or I'm sorry, not lettings, they'll all be let. So that's just continued payment on those projects as they progress. That is somewhat offset by decreases in the other assistance category that we discussed earlier. And, oh yeah, the FTEs remain the same now that they've had that edit there at 2,250.3 FTEs. The agency's 2022 includes plans to let approximately 483.9 million in preservation projects and 642 million in expansion and modernization, which explains your jump from 21 at 1.9 to the 2.2 you're seeing in front of you. The governor recommended that same amount with some changes that you saw previously, 100,000 from the Driver Education Scholarship Grant Fund, 10.1 million from the Special City County Highway Fund that just reflects those estimated revenues and expenditures by the Consensus Revenue Estimating Group, and then reducing the primary transfer from the State Highway Fund from the FY 2021 of 133.7 million to 66.85 million for FY 22. So you're seeing the drivers of the expenditures from the FY 21 and 22 transfers. Of course, you have the historically routine transfers that include things like the Kansas Highway Patrol, which is about $57 million, and you have the Revenue Division of Vehicles Operating Fund, which is about $48 million. Those make up the main pieces of those ordinary transfers, so those are still occurring. The ordinary transfers totals 108 million and 110 million respectively for 21 and 22. Extraordinary transfers, however, include some of the newer items that have been placed in under T-Works. And that's also going to include that line item noted for law enforcement aircraft in 21 that was deleted, and has SGF transfers as noted in the narrative of 133.7. But there's also included in there the Aging and Disability Service mental health grants at 9.75 million. The Adjutant General Emergency Communications Fund has about 320,000. But there's also State House Debt Service, which moves from FY 2021 at 14.6 million up to 20.375 in 22. So you're seeing extraordinary transfers or T-Works/Ike program transfers. Those go from 174 million down to 97 million, which is a pretty substantial cut. And most of that you're seeing in reducing the law enforcement aircraft, because we don't do that in 22, even under the recommendation. And then also the SGF transfers being cut in half. And with that, I would stand for questions on the 22 transportation budget.
Questions? Seeing none?
And the subcommittee, or the Senate committee, sorry, the Senate Transportation Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for 22. There were no alterations there. Apologies for not sneaking that in.
Okay. If there's no questions,
All right, we'll make a motion. For FY 21, I would like the addition of the notation for the HR 133 federal COVID relief bill to be maintained. And then I would have the concur with the governor's recommendation on FY 21 and 22 for the Kansas Department of Transportation.
second by Senator Hawk. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Clays. Next, we'll have Human Services, Senator McGinn with the Department of Health and Environment and Health.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Department of Health only, not the environment side. So there's a couple things in here I have to kind of distinguish between the two. The agency requests a revised estimate of $3.5 billion, including $847 million from the state general fund. These funds are a decrease in the all funds and an increase in the SGF. The request includes $25 million for the administrative function of the Division of Public Health and $3.2 for the Division of Healthcare Finance. The all funds decrease is primarily attributable to the human services caseloads and a decrease in expenditures for contractual services in the Division of Healthcare Finance. This decrease was partially offset by $75 million in federal grants for COVID prevention treatment in the Division of Public Health. The SGF increase is largely due to the agency's 9 supplemental requests totaling $22 million, partially offset by the adjustments to SGF expenditures for human services caseloads. The revised estimate includes 1,138 FTE positions, which is an increase of 80 FTE positions above the number approved in 2020. This increase is due to several positions being added to support the state's COVID response. These include additional epidemiologic and information service surveillance staff in the Division of Public Health, as well as the auditors and managed care organization analysts in the Division of Health Care Finance. So the governor recommends the expenditures at $3.4 billion, including $722 in SGF. This is a all funds decrease of $48 million and a SGF decrease of $125 million, below the agency's 2021 revised estimate. The governor's recommendation includes fully funding the fall 2020 Human Services Consensus caseload estimates, which includes a decrease of $111 million, including $99 million SGF and a lapse of $3.6 million in reappropriations from 2020. The governor also recommends $150,000 to fund half of the agency's supplemental request for the Kansas Trauma Program. And the governor also recommends the 11,038 positions, which is the same number from the 21 revised estimate. Subcommittee concurred, and I have an amendment. I had just come from doing DCF and KDADS and grabbed my papers, and I missed something that needs to get put in. It's been put in on the House side. It has to do with the hospital provider assessment. So I'm going to read just a little overview about it, and then I have the language that we'll give to the revisers to insert. And I believe all of this is identical to what the House put in. So if this is accepted, then it will just be in there and we're done with it. So the 2020 Legislature appropriated $14.2 million to cover the 2020 shortfall in the program while waiting on CMS approval of the program changes to make the program self-sustaining. So the program overspent in 2020. What the overspend was $8.4 million. The remaining $5.8 million was swept in caseload adjustments. So the goal, again, one more time, I hope, done, is to get this program approved by CMS. And a lot of this had to do with when CanCare came online, the formula just was not in proper form to make this successful. So this will help continue the program without cuts until CMS approves. The language in the budget is directing KDHE to pay the hospitals and physicians at the Medicaid rate established in 2020 until the first calendar quarter following the approval by CMS and the HCAP hospital provider assessment rate adjustments as approved by 2020 legislature. And this language will apply to both 2021 and 2022. And the rest of this is legally verbiage, and so I don't think you want me to read it. I think most all of you here understand what this is about.
This same thing we've been doing for the last 4 years. Any questions?
Okay.
Seeing none?
So I'll give this to the revisor, or else we don't have one. I'll give it to Megan. Well, you don't, you want me to give this to you? I'll give it to Nancy. Okay. So that's my amendment for this 2021.
Okay, do you want to make a
Make a
motion?
motion to approve it.
Okay, and we have a second by Senator Gershon. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Please continue.
Okay, and before I continue on, I wanted to just visit a little bit about the increases in FTEs. We had a pretty long conversation about this yesterday. What happens is you have this pandemic like we've not seen in 100 years, and then you find out the weaknesses within your own agency. And they were able to acquire federal funding to fund these positions. And it was my understanding that they believe that they have federal funding to continue these FTEs. So our question had more to do with, yes, we get that we were probably underfunded with having epidemiologists and some other support areas, but would we still need that total amount once everything slows down after COVID? And they assured us that these would stay within federal funding, and if they started to lose that federal funding, then that they would make adjustments in that FTE. So that's just, I just wanted everybody to know the conversation we had, so about that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move on now to 2022.
Senator Hawk.
Just a quick, what is the Kansas Trauma Program that the governor recommended $150,000 more for?
Senator Petty or Senator Kirshen, I'll look it up, but we kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday, too. Oh, yes, we did talk about that. That's a program that they go out and do a lot of statistics about any kind of injury that is traumatic, whether it's car accidents, falling downstairs, these kinds of things. And so they look at these items and then they figure out what are some preventative things that we can put in to decrease that. And actually, I don't have it with me, but they actually showed us a chart of, actually I got a slide presentation, so I'll send it, that showed that they did have improvements in this. It has traditionally been funded by the seatbelt fees. And of course, we know that that is going down, but also about 2 or 3 years ago, we passed a bill that took some of that money. So they have decreased the amount of funding that they have in that program. So that's kind of it, and I'll send you the slide presentation.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator McGinn, I have the question also. I've been receiving over 100 emails on brain injuries. Did that
Yeah.
come up in committee?
That's going to be next week in KDADS.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Petty's got it.
Any other questions? Senator Petty?
I just wanted to add on the piece that Senator McGinn spoke to concerning the number of FTEs. I think it was also included that the federal funding that they've received is good through 23. So they have the ability to be able to fund those positions if necessary through 23.
And I just want to talk about it to everybody because it's one of those things where it becomes institutional memory, and if you don't think to ask about it in 2023 or 4, so it'll get lost. Okay, are we ready to move on?
No more questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. 2022, the agency requests $3.4 billion, including $841 million from SGF for operating expenditures. And this is an all funds decrease of $45 million and an SGF decrease of $6 million below the 2021 revised estimate. This request includes $24.4 million in administrative function $184 million in Division of Public Health, and $3.2 billion for the Division of Healthcare Finance. The all funds decrease is primarily attributed to the decrease in the federal funds for COVID-19 prevention and treatment, including $50 million reduction in federal aid with the Division of Public Health. The SGF decrease is primarily due to the decrease in SGF expenditures for human service caseloads, partially offset in the SGF expenditures for the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP. The agency request includes 9 enhancement requests totaling $3.6 million, and including $32 million of SGF. The revised estimate includes the 1138 FTE, which is the same as the 2021. Governor's recommendation, the governor recommends deleting $12.6 million from all funds, including SGF increase of $12.8 to fully fund the fall 2020 human service caseload estimates, and by adding $596 million from the all funds, including $19 million from SGF to fund Medicaid expansion. In addition, the governor recommends deleting $29 million all from the medical programs fee fund to remove the increased state share of the Children's Health Insurance Program from the agency's budget, and delete $1.1 million for SGF for the reduced resource budget. The governor recommends funding half of the agency's enhanced request for the Kansas Trauma Program of $150,000, and the governor recommends the FTEs, which are the same as 2021. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation of year 2022 with the following adjustments. Add $1.5 million all SGF to increase the funds available to local health departments using the statutory formula distribution contained in KSA 65-242 for year 2022. This brings the total amount available for distribution to the 100 health departments in Kansas using the formula to $3.7 million. Add language to raise the minimum provided to each of the 100 local health departments under the statutory formula distributed contained in the KSA 65-242 for year 2022 to $12,000. Add $140,000 all from SGF for KDHE to collaborate with the state and local health departments to more efficiently, effectively recognize the test for Lyme disease in individuals across the state for 2022. Add $150,000 all SGF to fund the agency's enhancement request for school-based oral health preventative services. These services include oral health screenings, dental cleanings, and education and data to schools statewide. I want to go back to the health department recommendation. We passed this last year. This was an item that was allotted by the governor. The health departments have not received, do you know it off the top of your head without me looking it up, had an increase since 1992. We have also found out through this pandemic, again, they just did what they always did, but they also didn't have the ability to pay certain salaries to get certain qualified people in there, and then they had positions also that just not able to attract people to work there. So we felt that this was needed last year, and that's why we added it again this year to help some of our local health departments. So that's what that is. How that distribution works is everybody will get a base of $12,000, and then over and above what's spent there, then it's based on population. Is that correct, Megan? Okay, thank you. On the Lyme disease, we had this in there again last year too. This was a program that came up because they also have a mosquito surveillance program. And you'll see that it's not funded, but it sounded like to us that they did find some money to go ahead and support that program. On the Lyme disease, what's happening across the state is it used to be a Northeast United States problem. And this disease has spread across and is almost all the way through Kansas now. And people who usually get this, they don't know that they have it. And a year or two will go by, and some have been in walkers, et cetera. And what this program will do is, one, provide epidemiology support, but also educate doctors. A lot of times doctors have not been trained to look for this, and so they don't do the testing. There's like a 6 or 7 point testing that you have to go through. And that's why you also see on KDHE's report, when they report, they'll say, you know, X amount has Lyme disease, and it's because doctors did not advise them to go ahead and take those tests. And so I think you'll see those numbers differently. We also had conversation about working with the Department of Wildlife and Parks because they can identify the ticks through the type of deer that go through our state as well. And then the committee just felt like we should put the school-based oral health preventative services in there. Now, there is one other item that we overlooked, and that has to do with the community network care. I wish they'd never change their name because I can never say it right. So
Community
I'll
care
to
clinics.
Senator Petty.
Community care clinics.
These are your safety net clinics in your community. They have done an awesome job through this pandemic, and they have a system that they can serve way more people for less money and help those individuals, particularly that has lost their job or low income. And so because of the partnerships that they have with the community, they serve a lot of people. And so this too was another budget item that was allotted by the governor. The House, I believe, has put in $2 million, and I'd be willing to either put in $2 million, or if the chairman wants something to negotiate, we can do 1.5 or 2.5. They had asked for $5 million, but what was allotted was the $2 million. And so we felt strongly that we should put something back in that area.
Well, I might suggest 2.5, which would be half of what they asked for, and then we could negotiate with the House. Is everyone in agreement with something like that? Senator Hawk?
So did they get 5 million last year and the governor allotted 2?
So they got the 2 from
They got
us,
the-
and she allotted it. They did not get what they asked for.
They didn't get any.
They got, well, yeah, we gave them 2, and the governor allotted it.
So that meant they got 0 because of the allotment. Okay. Then I'm good with the 2.5.
Senator Petty?
Think, and maybe I need to, but I have in my notes that they are getting, but that's statewide, 10.6 million in state funds.
That's their base.
That's the base, right. So but the 2 million was the allotment that was cut, would have been in addition to that base and it was cut last year in the allotments.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was suggesting 2.5, and then we could negotiate.
Mr. Chairman, if that's your motion, I'll second it.
Okay, I made the motion and seconded by Senator McGinn. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion.
We got a question coming up, Mr. Chairman, just a minute.
That motion carries. Senator Fagg, did you have a question, or you want to wait till the next?
We're going to wait till the next.
Next one, okay.
Got it.
Senator Hawk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you know if we allotted or gave money through Spark to the health departments, or my recollection is we talked about that in Spark, but we maybe left that up to the counties, 400 million to allocate. I think local health departments did get help.
I thought that we did give them some money, but that was like early in the whole Spark process, like last summer when it actually was warm out.
Yeah.
So my brain has had to journey a long way since then, but do you remember? Yeah, and it was just kind of a one-time
Right.
to help them with PPE, sanitation, that kind of thing. It did nothing to help them with their infrastructure and employee base.
I'm just kind of wondering, since a lot of the county health departments are doing the vaccination programs, if they have additional money to do those programs, or I don't think they're having to pay for that out of their existing
I
budget.
think they're doing it out of their existing FTEs. And again, I go back to what they found. Some people quit because the stress was too great. Some people quit because they just weren't qualified. Some places couldn't even hire people because they couldn't pay them enough. So this kind of helps beef up their system that they have in place. And what we learned with the pandemic, you know, we said, let's give a lot of responsibility to local units of government. And I think helping our local health department is going to help our locals do a better job.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I just kind of wanted to have a good picture if we did get extra money through Spark or other resources or through KDHE for the vaccination. Just curious what that is. Thank you.
Senator Petty, you had a question?
No, I do have down that they did get, that they do have one-time COVID funds, but they're just one time. And last year's request was for 2.6 million. That's what was lost in the allotment. And of course, we're just adding, this year, we're asking for 1.5, so.
And they did receive $4 million in the Spark. Thank you.
Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking on this 2022, I hope this is the right place to ask this. Under the governor's recommendation, it is talking about, in the sentence, to fund Medicaid expansion, 19 million, the 596 million from all funds, including 19 million to fund Medicaid expansion. Was there any discussion on that in committee? Because I don't see anything on the backside of it.
We had a small discussion on that. And so I think I'm going to tell you what the House did. And so I don't know if you know, you might find this of interest and let me know if I'm wrong. Because I found out our legislative staff can't tell us what the House did until they report out. So we had other people that could tell us what they did. So they added language to delete $577 million from all federal funds for the Medicaid expansion in 2022, if it does not pass. But what they did is add language to transfer $19 million from SGF that was included in the governor's budget for Medicaid expansion to partially fund the agency's enhanced request for the increased state share of the CHIP program, which is the Children's Health Insurance Program, if Medicaid expansion does not work. And, you know, you guys want to put something similar in there like that, I don't care. But I did know that the House had that in their position, and I thought, maybe we'll know some more by the time you go to negotiation, but I'm open and flexible.
Senator Fagg, was there something you wanted to add on that? Or the money is there, but it won't be expended unless the legislation would pass to expand. Yeah.
So if it doesn't pass, it's going to be the House's position is to offset the CHIP program.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would suggest that we include that clarification in our notes, if appropriate.
So we wouldn't really, they'll report later about what the House actually does in our final reports when we start doing the mega budget. I was trying to figure out how could you change this up so that it'll come up in conference. So if we make it the same, it won't come up in conference. So for you to have that discussion, we have to figure out how to, why don't,
Since they,
the way it's stated? I haven't stated anything yet.
but since they brought it up and said they have it in there, isn't it going to come up? If we don't even
If
have it?
we don't do anything, it will come up.
Right.
Correct. Now, since I found all this out, can you nod your head that this is correct? Thank you.
The discussion, when we would go to conference on this, the discussion would be, if it doesn't pass, and it doesn't look like it probably will, what do we do with the 19 million? If we want to shift it to what they're suggesting, or at
Because
that time, we could suggest something else, or we can at this time, whichever.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is between now and by the time you go to conference, I mean, something else could have come up. I mean, I don't disagree with the House's position on this, but what if something else comes up, then we've locked ourselves into that position. Could we, just to put in our notes, why don't we just put in our notes, review the Medicaid expansion as it relates to the CHIP program when we package the mega bill. Not wait till omnibus, when we package the mega bill. And so there could be new information, because like we're going to package about what, the second or third week of March maybe, somewhere around there. We could have some new information about other things, and then maybe change that up then. But this way, staff will put it in their notes so that they make sure they bring it up at mega.
Senator Erickson, does that work with you? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're always trying to hear what Medicaid expansion is going to cost. Is that saying it's going to cost like it's $596 million? I've never heard a good, and that's the first time I've ever seen that number floating around.
She has 19 million in there.
Okay, and it says adding 596 from all funds, including.
Because that's federal funds.
Okay. So you're
So
saying
the 19 million is the cost to the state.
the cost to the state. Okay, that's what I want.
And then if you didn't do Medicaid expansion, again, we can have this debate, but you would theoretically lose 577 million from the federal funds. So that's why they had to write it like that.
Okay, thank you.
And the 19 million would just be for like the half a year, right? That's 22.
Is she raising it? Yeah, it's 22, so.
It's 22.
So it would be. But I just think by second or third week of March that like, we're going to know a lot more of the House's position and kind of just new information overall. We'll even know, whether there's changes at the federal level, so.
Okay, and Senator Erickson was good with the language, and Senator Fagg both? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nancy, do you have that? Okay. Everybody, okay?
Okay, and she'll figure out what I said. Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report on Kansas Department of Health for 21 and 22. I make a motion to approve.
A motion and a second by Senator Petty. Any questions? Senator Hawk?
Thank you. Just clarify, did you add the community care clinics as a 5?
We did.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
2.5, we already voted. He made the motion.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to Healthcare Stabilization Fund Board. Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Healthcare Stabilization Board estimates revised expenditures of $38 million, all from special revenue funds. For 2021, this is an all funds decrease of $17,800 below the 21 budget. The decrease is primarily attributable to decreased expenditures on contractual services for computer software maintenance contracts. The revised estimate includes 21 FTEs, which is the same as the 21 approved number. Governor concurs and the subcommittee concurs. For 2022, the agency requests the $37 million from special revenues, decrease of all funds of $1 million or 2.7 below the revised estimate. The decrease is primarily attributable to decreased expenditures on court-approved settlement agreements or jury awards. This decrease is partially offset by increased expenditures from contractual services related to legal fees, attorney, expert, witnesses, court costs, and salaries and wages expenditures for 2.5% merit, salary increase and increases for salaries and wages and fringe benefits. The request includes 21 FTEs. The governor concurs with the agency, and the Senate concurs, and I will probably have an amendment to this as well. I apologize, we missed this. We had to keep putting off their deliberation, and we knew that they really didn't have a lot of change. Of course, this is the agency that provides some supplemental insurance to our physicians across the state. But I noticed in here, when I was reviewing this prior to our meeting, that they had the salary and wages in there for 2.5%. And I believe we need to take that out, and that needs to be an item that is reviewed at all of this when we do the salaries. So it's Martin, I believe, DeBoer? Martin?
Martin, are you available?
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
So could you clarify, they are funded, though, entirely through their fees, but to be consistent, I believe, with the fee fund boards, I think we still put these off to omnibus. We've lost everybody. Oh, there he is.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I can go ahead and make that notation in here. It is my understanding that they did not receive this increase last year, which is why it's in here this time. They are a quasi state agency. So they do receive capers, but that's all through contracts between them and capers. So, but I can definitely make a note of that in the subcommittee report.
Well, so that does make them a little bit different here. We had this same problem, I believe it was last year from the year before. A couple of those agencies, Wildlife and Parks or somebody, I don't know, they didn't ask for it in their budget or something like that. But maybe we just need to get some more information on this. So could you please so note that we're trying to be consistent with the other fee agencies, but make sure that we review this. I think this one needs an extra asterisk on it if this is the result of them not receiving it last year. So everybody got their raise last year. I'm curious about that. That didn't get cut out in the allotments. Everybody got a 2.5 last year?
I believe that is accurate.
Okay. All right, just put an asterisk on this so we can take a look at it later. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report on the Healthcare Stabilization Fund. So I'd make a motion to accept the committee's report with the notation that Martin is going to add to it.
Second by Senator Petty. Are there questions? Senator Petty.
I should have asked this on the subcommittee, but as I'm looking at the report, Senator McGinn, the governor is not recommending the agency's enhanced request to raise the starting salary, but I don't see where she's the reflection of the 2.5. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's, again, we need to review this again because it's not just the 2.5%, it's talking about the merit-based salaries increases.
Yeah, but she's not recommending it, though. It's not that she's included it, she's not recommending it. Just
I don't see that.
last page, 29.
Okay, I'm looking on the sheet that we're supposed to go off in here, but I'll go to page 29.
I'm just looking at.
I know, but I'm looking at what it says. The report says. Martin, can you provide some clarification, please?
Yes, sure. So for fiscal year 2022, I believe it's on page 1126 on the budget analysis. You'll notice there in the agency request, a 2.5 merit-based increase is included in their request. And then on the following page on 1127, the governor does concur with the agency's 2022 request. So there is no mention of the governor not accepting that merit-based increase.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm looking at then.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing it up, but we'll talk about it again.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. The last thing we have on the agenda today is, would like to do final action on Senate Bill 159, which is paying certain claims against the state submitted by the Joint Committee on Special Claims against the state. This is primarily the bill that we use for budget. So if someone would like to make a motion, we'll. Senator Kershaw makes a motion, seconded by Senator Hawk. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That is all we had on the agenda for today, so thank you all. I appreciate you all sticking around on Friday.
So Monday, we won't do anything, but Tuesday, it's more report outs, I believe, right?
Correct, yes. No, we're going for Senator S's funeral. You bet. Thank you. We are adjourned.